All right, let's take a deep dive into something pretty amazing. Uh, the innate immune system. You know, the one that's always working to protect you from all those tiny little invaders.
It is a fascinating system.
We found this great article
Oh, yeah.
from Assay Genie called Innate Immune System Cells, an in-depth overview, and it goes into a lot of detail.
Really interesting stuff.
But we're going to break it down and highlight some of the really cool things.
The coolest parts.
So, I guess to start off, what's the first thing that happens when, like, you get a little cut or something and some bacteria gets into your body? What's the first line of defense?
Your innate immune system is ready to go right away, unlike the adaptive immune system, which is a bit slower.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so who are the first responders in this system?
Macrophages are usually the first ones on the scene. They're like the sentinels constantly patrolling your tissues, looking for anything suspicious.
The sentinels, huh? So they just stand guard, or do they actually fight?
Oh, they definitely fight. Macrophages are amazing. They can literally engulf and devour those invaders through a process called phagocytosis.
So they, like, eat the bacteria.
Yeah. Think of them as the Pac-Man of your immune system, just gobbling up those nasty germs.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so Pac-Man, but one little Pac-Man can't handle everything, right? If there's a really big invasion.
Right. You need more than one.
Yeah.
That's where macrophages get really clever. They don't just eat the invaders. They also send out signals, these chemical messengers called cytokines.
So like a microscopic bat signal?
Exactly. Those cytokines alert other immune cells to the threat, bringing in reinforcements.
Wow, so it's a coordinated attack.
Very much so.
So who else answers the call when the macrophages put out the signal?
Neutrophils are like the SWAT team. They're the most abundant white blood cells in your bloodstream, always circulating, always ready to go.
So they're like constantly on patrol.
Yeah, just waiting for that signal.
Wow, okay, so they're ready to go. And what do they do when they get to the site?
They have some pretty amazing weaponry. They can actually throw out these nets made of DNA and antimicrobial proteins and kill the microbes. We call them neutrophil extracellular traps, or nets.
Well, wait, they throw nets. Nets, that's amazing.
It's a really ingenious defense mechanism.
Okay, so we've got these macrophages eating invaders, sending out the signal, and then neutrophils are coming in and just, like, taking them out with their nets.
Amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so who else is involved in this system? Because it sounds very complex.
There's another cell type we need to talk about.
Okay.
These are the intelligence agents, dendritic cells.
Dendritic cells. Okay, I've heard of those, but I don't really know what they do.
They're constantly patrolling the body, taking samples, gathering information about potential threats.
So they're like the spies.
Exactly. They capture these antigens, which are like little fingerprints of the invaders, and they take this information to the lymph nodes.
Lymph nodes, right? I know those are important, but why are they going there?
Think of the lymph nodes as the command center of your immune system, and the dendritic cells are going there to present the antigens to the T cells, which are part of the adaptive immune system.
Oh, so this is like the bridge between the innate and adaptive immune systems.
Exactly. They're making sure that everyone knows what's going on and that the response is coordinated.
Okay, so the dendritic cells, they're not just fighting. They're coordinating.
They're gathering intelligence, and they're making sure that the right cells are activated.
Wow, that's incredible. I never realized how targeted these responses are.
The immune system is incredibly complex.
It really is. And the article mentions that there are even different types of dendritic cells.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of variety.
And some are better at fighting certain infections.
Some are better at keeping things calm.
Oh, so it's not all about attack. It's about balance, too.
Exactly. The immune system is all about balance. Too much of a response can be just as bad as too little.
So there's this fine line. Wow. Okay, so we've got the macrophages eating invaders calling for backup. We've got the neutrophils coming in, trapping things with their nets. And then we've got the dendritic cells gathering intel and briefing the adaptive immune system. That is a lot of players.
It is an amazing system, and there's still one more cell type we need to talk about.
Okay, there's even more. Who else is on this team?
These are like the rogue agents of the immune system.
Yeah.
The natural killer cells, or NK cells for short.
NK cells. Okay, the name sounds a little intimidating.
They're pretty tough. NK cells are the assassins of the immune system, always on the lookout for cells that have gone rogue.
Rogue cells? Like what do you mean by rogue?
Like virus-infected cells or cancer cells. Cells that are no longer behaving the way they should.
Oh, so the NK cells, they're going after the bad guys that are already inside.
Exactly. They're like the internal security force, making sure that everything is running smoothly.
Wow, so NK cells as assassins. That's That's a pretty intense analogy.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
That's true. So how do they actually know which cells to target? Do they ever get it wrong?
That's a great question, and that's one of the things that makes NK cells so fascinating. They don't rely on those specific antigen fingerprints like the adaptive immune system does. Instead, they have their own unique way of detecting trouble.
So how do they do it? What are they looking for?
They're constantly patrolling the body, looking for cells that are expressing signs of stress or abnormality. They have this special set of receptors that allow them to recognize these disguised cells that are trying to hide from the immune system.
So they're like looking for cells that are acting suspicious.
Exactly. They're like the detectives of the immune system, always on the lookout for anything out of the ordinary.
Okay, so they found a target. Now what happens? How do they get rid of the threat?
They have a very effective weapon. Apoptosis?
Apoptosis. That sounds intense. What is that?
It's basically programmed cell death.
Oh, wow.
The NK cells essentially tell the infected or cancerous cell to self-destruct.
So it's not like they're attacking the cell directly. They're telling the cell to destroy itself.
Exactly. It's a very controlled process that ensures a clean and contained elimination.
So it's like a self-destruct button.
Exactly. And this ability to induce apoptosis is really crucial for controlling viral infections and preventing cancer from developing.
So it's a very important job.
Incredibly important.
Okay, so we've got macrophages engulfing pathogens, neutrophils trapping microbes with their nets, dendritic cells gathering intel, and NK cells taking out rogue cells with their self-destruct button. That's a lot of action.
It's an amazing system, isn't it?
It really is a whole army working together.
All coordinated and communicating with each other.
That's what blows my mind, all these different cells working together to protect us. It's incredible.
It really is a testament to the complexity and elegance of the human body.
Absolutely. And we've only just scratched the surface of how these cells communicate and coordinate their actions.
There's so much more to explore.
I know, right? So how about we take a closer look at that communication in part 2 of this deep dive?
I'm ready when you are. Welcome back. We were just talking about all these different cells working together.
It's mind-blowing to think about this whole system working inside us all the time.
A whole microscopic world defending us.
And it's not just random. They're all coordinating and communicating with each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of communication going on between those different cell types.
So how do they actually talk to each other? Do they have like tiny walkie-talkies or something?
Not quite walkie-talkies, but they do have a fascinating way of sending signals. Remember those cytokines we talked about, those chemical messengers released by macrophages?
But like the microscopic bat signal, calling for backup.
Exactly. Those cytokines are key for communication. They're like little messengers traveling to other immune cells and telling them what's going on and what needs to be done.
So it's like a complex chemical language they're using.
Precisely. And just like any language, there are different signals for different situations. Some cytokines signal inflammation, others call in specific types of cells, like a targeted request for reinforcements.
So it's not just a general alarm, it's a specific message depending on what's happening.
Exactly. And this communication is crucial for an effective immune response. It allows the innate immune system to quickly adapt and tailor its attack to the specific type of threat.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say a macrophage encounters a bacteria. What happens next in this communication chain?
So the macrophage spots the bacteria and immediately releases specific cytokines that are like a neutrophil magnet, drawing them to the site of the infection.
Oh, wow. So the neutrophils, they're not just randomly patrolling, they're being guided by these signals.
Precisely. They follow the chemical trail like bloodhounds sniffing out their target.
That's so cool. And then they can trap and kill the bacteria with their amazing nets.
Exactly. And while this is all happening, dendritic cells are also on the scene gathering intelligence.
Right. They're like spies collecting information about the enemy.
Precisely. They capture antigens from the bacteria, those unique fingerprints we talked about, and then rush to the lymph nodes.
To the lymph nodes, the command center.
Yes. And they present those antigens to the T cells of the adaptive immune system.
So the innate system is not only fighting off the immediate threat, but also prepping the adaptive system for a more targeted response.
Exactly. It's like the innate system is buying time for the adaptive system to develop its specialized weapons.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's a multi-layered defense system, each layer working together.
It really is. And this coordination wouldn't be possible without that complex communication network we were talking about.
Okay, so we've talked about macrophages, neutrophils, and dendritic cells all working together.
Yeah.
But what about those NK cells, those rogue agents? Where do they fit in?
NK cells are a bit different. They're not as reliant on those cytokine signals for activation. They have their own unique way of detecting trouble.
Right, they're like lone wolf detectives.
Exactly. They're constantly patrolling the body, looking for cells that are expressing signs of stress or abnormality.
So they're not waiting for a signal, they're actively searching for threats.
Precisely. And they have a special set of receptors that allow them to recognize these disguised cells that are trying to hide from the immune system.
Like virus-infected cells or cancer cells.
Exactly.
It's like they have a sixth sense for trouble.
They do. And once they find a target, they don't hesitate to take action.
So how do they eliminate the threat?
They use their secret weapon apoptosis to initiate programmed cell death in that rogue cell.
Oh, right, the self-destruct button? That's incredible.
It's a highly effective way of eliminating potentially harmful cells and preventing them from spreading. And this ability to induce apoptosis is crucial for controlling viral infections and preventing the development of cancer.
So even though they work a bit differently, they're still a vital part of the immune system.
Absolutely. They play a crucial role in maintaining overall health and balance within the body.
It's amazing how all these different cells, with their unique abilities and communication methods, work together to protect us.
It truly is. And we've only just scratched the surface of this incredibly complex and fascinating system.
I know, right? It makes you realize just how much is going on inside us all the time.
A microscopic world constantly buzzing with activity, with cells battling invaders, sending signals, and coordinating defenses. It's a never-ending battle. But thankfully, we have an amazing team on our side.
That's a great way to put it. So we've talked about this innate immune system, but I'm really curious about how it interacts with the adaptive immune system.
That's a perfect segue because it's not just about the initial response, it's about long-term protection as well.
Okay, so let's dive into that in part 3 of this deep dive. So we've spent all this time talking about this amazing innate immune system.
All those cells working together.
Macrophages, neutrophils,
It's amazing.
dendritic cells, NK cells. It's really incredible how much is going on inside of us all the time.
It really is.
But we keep mentioning this other system, the adaptive immune system.
Right.
So how does that fit into all of this?
Right.
How does it work with the innate system?
The adaptive immune system is kind of like the elite special forces.
Okay.
They're highly trained and equipped to deal with very specific threats, but they need time to prepare.
So it's not as quick as the innate system.
Right. The innate system is like the first responders. They're ready to go immediately. The adaptive system takes a little bit longer to get going.
So the innate system is kind of buying time.
Exactly. It's holding the line while the adaptive system gets its strategy in place.
So that's interesting. And you mentioned those dendritic cells rushing off to the lymph nodes
Yeah, they're a really important link between the two systems.
to present the antigens.
Right. They're gathering intel and bringing it to the command center.
So they're briefing the adaptive immune system.
Exactly. They're saying, hey, we've got this type of invader. Here's what it looks like. Let's develop a targeted attack.
So it's not just fighting, it's also providing information.
Exactly. The adaptive system can then create these highly specialized cells that can recognize and target that specific invader with incredible precision.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. So what are these specialized cells?
There are T cells and B cells.
Okay, I've heard of those. What do they do?
T cells are like the assassins.
Yeah.
They directly attack and destroy infected cells.
Oh, wow.
And there are also helper T cells that coordinate the immune response.
So even within the adaptive system, there's teamwork.
Always. And then you have the B cells.
Right. The B cells, what do they do?
They're the antibody factories.
Okay.
They produce these proteins called antibodies that can bind to the invader, either marking it for destruction or neutralizing it directly.
Antibodies. Oh, that's how vaccines work.
Right, you got it.
Ah.
Vaccines introduce a weakened version of a virus or bacteria
Right.
so that your body can create antibodies against it.
And then you're protected.
Exactly. It gives your adaptive immune system a head start, so when you encounter the real threat, your body is ready to fight back effectively.
That's so cool. So the innate system buys time, the adaptive system develops a targeted response, and then thanks to things like vaccines, we can have long-lasting immunity.
It's a pretty remarkable system.
It really is.
And it's all thanks to the amazing partnership between the innate and adaptive immune systems.
And it's not just a one-time thing. The innate system is always there,
Always on patrol.
ready to respond to any new threats.
Exactly. It's like having multiple layers of security, each with its own strength.
I love that analogy. It really helps understand how it all works together.
And just like with any good security system, communication is key. We talked about how the innate system uses those cytokine signals, but the adaptive system also has its own complex ways of communicating.
Oh, wow. So there's even more to learn about how those T cells and B cells are talking to each other.
There is a lot more to explore.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from those first responders of the innate system to those specialized forces of the adaptive system.
And we've seen how they work together to protect us.
It's been an amazing journey into the world of the immune system.
And there's always more to discover.
Absolutely. So if you want to learn even more, be sure to check out the full article from Assay Genie. We'll include a link in the show notes.
And until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.